Hi everyone and welcome along. I want to wish you a very happy new year, and even though it's very cold and crisp and bright outside, it's very beautiful and very inspiring, so it's time to do some watercolour painting again. But before we get going, I know there's lots of you who might be taking up watercolour as a new hobby this year. Maybe you've got a set of paints, maybe you're thinking about what kit to get. Well, the way we like to start off each year at Winton Paper Co is to talk through the colours in my palette, any choices or changes I've made for the year, and why I choose the colours that I do. So that's what we're looking at today. So instead of grabbing your paints, I'm going to grab my paints and we'll get started. So here is my palette. The first thing to mention is that it is in two parts, but it used to be a hinged palette. So just off camera there's a hinge and you'll see here these two little bits, and this is called the Loxley folding palette. It's not something that I sell in my shop, but it's very readily available online and very affordable. In a perfect world I'd have a ceramic palette in this exact shape and size, but I'm still looking, still hoping someone's going to make one for me at some point. So as I said in the introduction, we are going to take this opportunity to go into some depth on every single colour in the palette across the coming few weeks. But today we're going to do a quick summary of my 2026 palette, because what I've found over the years, there have been some changes since our last look in 2025 in January last year. But right now, if I look at this palette from when we were last painting together in December, there haven't actually been any changes between then and now. It's more of there's been a bit of a story of the palette changing over the year, so we're going to go through that quickly. Now, what I will say is I use professional or artist quality paints every time. You're never going to see a student or graduate quality in here, and that's because for me, I know that the artist and professional quality are the highest pigment. I'm going to get the most use out of them. They're going to last longer. They're just going to be the best ones to use. So if you can get the best you can afford, and you really won't regret it. So I thought what I would do is I would group our colours in terms of sort of tone, earthiness. So I'm going to start up here as a true left-hander would in the right-hand corner of the screen. And this is buff titanium. And this colour was a real superstar, I think, in about 2024 for me. It's a Daniel Smith colour. It's a creamy, semi-transparent. It's probably the nearest thing I've got to a thickening colour in my palette. And I used it so much in 2024. It sort of didn't get quite so much of a top billing in 2025, but I still love it. It's still really useful in my palette. And next to it, we've got lemon yellow, which also doesn't get a huge amount of use, but what both these colours are vital for is being added to mixes. Lemon yellow is a much more transparent colour. It's brilliant for glazes. We're going to go into all of this, but I'm just grouping these sort of light, bright, warm colours. So here I have Hansa Yellow Medium, and here is the first 2025 story, I suppose, which is that I looked at replacing the cadmium tones out of my palette. You may be interested in this, not interested at all, think it's over the top or think it's a sensible idea, but there was much discussion about sort of the toxic qualities of paints, which is a whole other discussion, which we're not going to get into right now. But it was an opportunity for me to just look around, and so I replaced cadmium yellow with Hansa Yellow Medium this last year. And then here we have good old yellow ochre, which is an absolute stalwart of my palette. It's been in there since the beginning. And it, again, for a while got sort of nudged out by buff titanium because I use them for quite a lot of similar things. I find that if you don't have buff titanium and you want to mix it, I find a little bit of yellow ochre and some Payne's grey diluted right down gives you the same tone. However, the thick creaminess of buff titanium is something that is unique to it. So I'm going to travel across the palette over here to my other earthy tones, and here we have a newcomer, which is quinacridone gold, or quinacridone gold. I'm pretty sure is the pronunciation. It might be next up on my alizarin crimson mispronounced list. This has got an amazing glowing golden quality. The clue's in the title. I've really enjoyed having this in my palette, and I can't wait to talk about it in more detail when we come to it. It's going to be the last one on the list probably, or maybe we'll start at the top. I don't know. My left hand illogical brain, my creative brain, doesn't quite know where's the starting point for this palette. And then we have Raw Umber, which has also been around in the palette for a long time. Over the years, it's nearly been pushed out. I used to think it was basically the same as Yellow Ochre, but you can see it's not. It's got its own slightly cooler quality, slightly more sophisticated quality. So, and then we have Raw Sienna, which is quite a newcomer and is quite similar to Yellow Ochre, but again, it's found its way in and has really earned its spot, so I'm happy to keep it here. And last but not least in this sort of earthy section, and I know yellows aren't necessarily earthy, but this is my palette, so this is how I'm going to class them, is Burnt Sienna, possibly one of the rock stars of my palette, I think. So hardworking, features in so many mixes with my Payne's Grey and Moonglow. I love it, and it continues to shine. And as I said, we're going to be going into all sorts of detail with every colour. I'm going to be telling you about the brands I love to use with each one, how to mix them, what they're useful for, examples of paintings that I've used them in. So that is all going to be featured in the coming weeks. But if you want to know right now where my colours are from, which brands I use, just check out the episode notes below, and I've listed them with the brands. Okay, so we're going to move along in the palette to my first orange tone, and this is Permanent Orange, and this also was a cadmium replacement. It's a beautiful orange, and one that I used to think would get upstaged by Pyrrole Orange quite a lot, but actually it totally holds its own. So yes, like I mentioned, Pyrrole Orange, another newcomer that I adore. I think possibly the star of 2025, Pyrrole Orange for me. A really beautiful, bright, vibrant, quite sort of salmon pink kind of an orange. Fantastic. Very good for flower painting. Now here we have a colour called Organic Vermilion, which is a beautiful red colour, and it's the colour I chose to replace cadmium red in my palette. And then over here, the iconic alizarin crimson, or alizarin crimson, to many of you, but I can't say that without really having to think about it. So it's a brilliant colour. It remains an absolute OG in the palette. But here we have a rather contentious colour for me. Potter's Pink. I was sold a real dream of Potter's Pink this time last year. And I'm saying no one sort of tricked me into using it, but I saw it around a lot and I thought, wow, I love that colour, I love that colour. So I bought myself a Daniel Smith Potter's Pink, quite a granulating one. And I don't use a huge amount of granulating paints. That might be why I sort of put myself off a bit. But I've used it maybe twice in tutorials. And it's strange because it's a really cool colour. Like, I like it. But there's been something about how it feels going across the page that hasn't sat very well with me, and that might be the granulating quality, but it's staying in there because I want to give it a fair chance in 2026. Then we have Permanent Rose, a colour that's been with me since the beginning and a colour I love very, very much. And for a long while, I thought about the colour next to it, Opera Rose, being too synthetic, too sort of Barbie pink, not being a good colour to have in the palette. And I was thinking about getting rid of Opera Rose because Permanent Rose did everything. And then this year, and I don't know if it's because I introduced Pyrrole Orange into the palette as well, but Opera Rose really started to come into its own, being a brilliant colour to mix in with the earthy tones to make various peachy blush colours. I'm thrilled with it, so I am going to keep them both. And then, somewhat controversially, I'm going to include some purples in this little section. Imperial Purple is a colour I have really loved. This is a Daniel Smith tone. Purple is not a colour in life that I prize very highly. It's not a favourite colour of mine, but I used to have, quite a few years ago, Cobalt Violet in my palette, and I really didn't get on with it that much. I always used to just try and mix up my own colour, whereas Imperial Purple I'm very happy to reach for. And then in this section I am going to include Moonglow, because I think Moonglow has real purple tones in it, sort of aubergine, eggplant kind of skin tones. So in it goes an absolutely wonderful addition from a few years ago. Around the same time I included Buff Titanium, just fabulous. So those are still remaining for 2026, my absolute favourite peachy pinky purple tones. We're going to start from the bottom down here, and here we have Green Gold, a lovely colour that has become such a vital member of my botanical painting tones. And yeah, it's a really, really good colour, a good sort of glazing colour. And then we have Sap Green. Oh, and at some point this year I'm going to run out of my De La Rowney Professional Sap Green, and it's going to be a sad day. But for now, we can enjoy using my favourite green ever. And yeah, well, I don't know what we're going to do. Deep Sap Green has been a great addition in the last year. Such a good colour. And you could just use Payne's Grey and Sap Green, but it's been lovely just having it ready mixed. And I'm a real keen mixer, but I've enjoyed having that in the palette. And then I'm going to include Aqua Green in my greens, because it's called green. And this was a replacement for Cobalt Turquoise. I also looked at Cobalt replacements this year, and it's a beautiful colour. And those are my greens. And so we'll move on to our blue tones. And I'm actually going to start, no, I'll start here, because this is a colour that doesn't get used very much in filming, but I do love it. So again, a bit like Potter's Pink, this is staying. It's been in the palette for a while. And the reason it didn't get a look in initially is it used to be down in the bottom, and our filming setup was a little bit tighter, and you didn't always see the bottom colour in the palette. But this is Mayan Blue Genuine, and it's a great colour, a sort of moody cousin to Prussian Blue. And Prussian Blue has been in my palette since day one. It's a great colour. Not a colour I use a huge amount anymore, but it's an old friend, and so I like to hold on to it. So yeah, Prussian, okay, Windsor Blue. This is a great turquoisey blue. I often use it for skies. I mean, it is similar to Prussian, but it's got, once it's diluted, it can really do some lovely things once transparent. And then this is Cerulean Blue Red Shade, which is my replacement for Cobalt Blue Deep. And I'm a big fan of it. It is a bit creamy, and sometimes I sort of feel like I need to put in a bit of Windsor Blue to just sort of loosen it up a bit, but it's a good colour. It's a good working colour for skies and things like that. And then French Ultramarine. which is the blue I featured in my book, You Will Be Able to Paint with Watercolour, this one, by the end of this book. The first half of the book is just using the primary colours, and it's a really fantastic way to get you confident with your mixing, and just know that you don't need tons of colours all the time. And then obviously skip over Moonglow. Up here, my beloved Payne's Grey, which is quite blue. Again, we'll be going into the brands I use and what I use it for, and the discussions over my Payne's Grey over the years. And then finally up here I have Ivory Black, and Ivory Black is a colour that, I mean, if I'm totally honest, I had Mars Black, I ran out, and then I had Ivory Black in my box of paints and I needed a black really quickly, so I just replaced it. It wasn't much more profound or thought through than that. It's quite a warm, sort of cozy black. It's not an inky dark black, but it works for me and I'm very happy with it. So pop my colour wheel back in there for a moment. These are the colours in my palette for 2026, but it's something that so many of you have plenty of questions about, and so I felt this was a brilliant opportunity to go right into detail with all of these colours, to explain what I use them for, what they do when they are placed on the page with other colours, a few examples of paintings I've done in the past which I've used these colours for, and of course the brands that I love to use and how to mix them, how to use them. This is a perfect way to start the year, I think, especially if you're brand new to watercolour. I'm so glad you've found me. And for anybody who's been with me for a long time, welcome back. It's lovely to have you. And I'm sure you know that going back to basics every now and then is a very good idea for all of us, no matter how experienced we are with our painting. So for now, I'll say thank you very much for watching. If you want a quick reference to the brands I'm using right now and the names of the colours, just head to the episode notes below, and I will see you on Thursday, where we are going to begin our in-depth colour series starting with Buff Titanium. See you soon. Bye!